Paul McCann. I'm the managing director of a company called CDG. We started up in 1989, so we're 27 years designing and helping companies bring their ideas to fruition and to create that brand experience that Andrew has talked about. So today, what I'd like to talk about, rather than the phonetics and all the differences between brands and stuff like that, is just to try and pick out 4 different ways that you who may have your own company and want to explore about trying to create a different impression for your company or your brand. So this is 4 ways. So I know we touched on this already with Andrew, but this is just our pull on it. We have a brand name and a brand. Brand name is the perception the customers have about the product or service. Your brand is what your customers think of when he or she hears your brand name. And that might sound a bit confusing, but the idea basically is that it's the personality, as we explained, it's the benefits, it's like, why will I choose an Apple iPhone over a HTC phone or something like that. Obviously when we're creating brands, because CDG evolved and it's more on the design side versus the creative side, and we create brands every day. We create the ideas for those brands and we try and differentiate those brands by coming up with unique ideas in how they're perceived and how they're shown. So we use a lot of creativity, but the most successful brands, we believe, are based on the goods and services into a high quality brand must drive, creative is not a learned behavior, it takes talent, imagination and self-belief. Now that's where you obviously hopefully employ somebody to help you take your idea and your innovation and create that self-belief and imagination. Engaging people through emotion, superior workmanship and a luxurious aura in the art itself. So that's basically to turn your goods and services into a high quality brand, you must drive past the monetary and material elements. And these are the 4 things that I'm going to talk about today and how we do that, basically. And it's how large brands that you will see, large organizations, are doing it all the time and currently doing it. And these are the things that you should try and think about when you're trying to deliver your company, your brand experience. So here are the 4 ways. First one, and through these 4 ways, I'm going to just give some illustrations of how people have actually tried to do this. So when we're creating a brand, we try and think of the detail. So small details are a big thing, and this is becoming more and more prevalent as we see how companies are dealing with it. If we look at iPhone, the iPhone 6, obviously the iPhone 7 will be coming out soon enough, but if you look at iPhone across the world, or Apple and that, you'll see how the detail in the packaging that you get. And why do they do that? Why do they have that detail in the packaging? Why does Chanel have the detail in the packaging when at the end of the day, the actual substance or the object inside it is probably not as expensive? It's the perception that you're trying to give to drive the value of your brand, or your brand promise, or your brand equity. We worked with a company, a hotel recently called the Morgan, and you'll see here basically we went into a lot of detail. They had their original brand identity, but we looked at taking their brand identity and reforming it. And a lot of people had a massive problem with the G, and we changed it. And together with that, we created a brand story and a brand message. And that brand message wasn't being driven across the line by the hotel. And we created a series of messages which would be supported through imagery to give that experience where people would say, oh yeah, that's a place I'd like to go to. So the detail that we went back to with the Morgan actually helped drive their marketing promise and their marketing, which inevitably led them to buying a 3rd hotel called the Spencer. Now they have the Spencer, the Beacon and the Morgan. We look after all their brand identity in that and keep it unique as possible and give them guidelines to work with. So it's no longer only a matter of appearance, it's about the beauty of deep craftsmanship in your brand. So when we do look at the iPhone 6 or Chanel or the Morgan, we're looking at the craftsmanship, and we're looking at the packaging, we're looking at the experience, because that's what makes the difference of why you might spend 800-900 euros on an iPhone as against 200-300 euros on another phone that will do pretty much the same thing. Second, brand stories are a benefit, not a secret. Before, people would think, well, you know, how we make our product and how we deliver our service is a big secret. We're finding now that large organizations or brands or people that are trying to create their brand experience are driving forward to doing something more by opening the doors to what their experiences have been and where they picked up their history and their ethos and whatever. The first one here is about Dom Perignon. These other two here are companies that we've worked with, and I'll explain a little bit more about those ones. But the Dom Perignon idea, I think we've seen a few times, where obviously Dom Perignon was a monk. He created the obviously first level of champagne, and he was interned actually for his sins and kept in prison, so he was. And there's an abbey and there's an experience in Dom Perignon, and Dom Perignon were losing a foothold for the marketplace to cheaper champagne brands and stuff like that. So they wanted to create that aura, that experience. So they went back, opened up the abbey again, opened up an experience in there so that people could go and evolve themselves in the brand experience and driving that at them. This particular company here, Grand Alps, they're based in Courchevel in France, and we worked with them. And they're a 5-star plus, probably 6-star plus place. It costs a minimum, I think, 1,500 euros a night to stay in the place. And we're trying to differentiate them because obviously you're talking about the high-tech sector or high-profile sector of people that would go there. So when we discussed with them what would make their difference, there seemed to be coming out with a lot of stories about the people that came there. And one of the stories was that somebody brought a snow leopard, a snow tiger, once and had it housed in the place. So we took these stories and we embedded them into the brand experience, and we drove it from there. This particular company here we worked with here is an Irish company, but they're around the world. They were working in the biotech sector. Again, we looked at their story and we changed their story from being a med-tech company to some company that could obviously offer aerospace technology in that. I'm getting a bit of a notice here that I have a few more minutes left. So to create brand experience preference, brands need to tell the tale, to share the legend, or to inspire and forge emotional bonds with their client. Story, if you can get your story right. A detail and story. Third thing, experience matter not as much as the objects. I won't go into the detail of these because my presentation will probably go on a bit too long, but I'll talk about this one here. This is a guy that came to us there last year, and he wanted to develop a brand identity for his bed and breakfast, his glamping, his everything. So what we done is we tried to see if we could create a brand experience that would own Kinnity, because he's based in Kinnity, a small little town in the middle of Burn-Offaly. So we went with Visit Kinnity. Okay, now there's Kinnity Castle, which isn't being marketed so effectively. So our intention was for him was to try and own Kinnity as an entity, and then obviously indirectly he would get the business because people would come there, and online we would promote it digitally, and then obviously that's where most of his traction would come and most of his business would come. So the idea was to visit Kinnity, and then you have the elements of what he offers after that, which was lots of different areas. So brands are moving beyond exclusive shops and displaying precious objects. They're delivering surprising experience in unexpected places. I don't have time to talk about the other few things, but the idea was that, you know, Visit Kinnity was more about the experience rather than come and stay in our hotel or in our bed and breakfast. Fourth and final thing, quality brands are taking a stand for a better world. So we've talked about the detail, we've talked about the story, we've talked about, sorry, go back in. the experience, and now we're talking about building for a better world. We'll find nowadays, and I'm glad to see there's a gentleman in the audience here that we work with. We're finding nowadays, obviously, Stella McCartney, and she stands for the idea of being able to use everything with your product and to try and use it the most as possible. Karl Lagerfeld at the fashion show in 2014, last year, supporting women's rights. So he's using his brand to actually be exposed to such an experience like this, to drive PR and whatever. And the top one here is an interesting one, which is a company called Hemanua, which we work with. And our intention there was to try and evoke the idea of being able to save lives. So this product was not so much an idea for commercial use, even though it has its commerciality, but the idea was I was trying to save lives. And this was the focus and the key selling point. And they've done exceptionally well in awards in America, with Bill and Melanie Gates. I can't remember the exact one, and they came 17th out of thousands of people in that division. So, quality brands, which could be your product as well too, and what can you learn from this, is basically demonstrating that they're giving back to the world, not just by making things, but doing things for a brighter future. In other words, a better way to connect with people and build a goodwill that keeps your brand relevant and vibrant. So what can we learn from this? It's never too late in a brand's life cycle. So if you're a company that's 27 years old or a company that's 8 months old, it's never too late to look for new opportunities for reaching out to your customers. So don't think that you're stuck in a rut. And then the second thing, when you're selling a luxury, FMCG or services, you're not selling the product, you're selling the experience, as Andrew explained. The experience is what people buy into. They don't buy as much into the actual product. Why again would you buy an iPhone over a HTC? Well, some people love the HTC because they have a different experience, but most people buy iPhones because they're addicted to the brand and they're addicted to the experience that that brand gives. So, to summarize, trends come and go, but the basics, quality products, smart storytelling, memorable experiences, and responsible living will never go out of style. If you can take those 4 elements and use them to help drive your company or your brand experience, I think you should have a more successful outcome. So that's it. Thank you very much.